Hello everybody, Bob Gilly again, back in the workshop. I'm going to do a video today to start a project which involves making an easel, a decorative easel. My wife has asked me to make one for my son's wedding celebration, which is coming up in a couple of months. So I thought I'd see what we could do down the shop to help her out. And I looked around for some different designs online, and I came up with one that I liked. This particular one here. So it's simple, it's elegant, and I think we could do it in our shop pretty easily. So we're gonna go ahead and make it. I've never made an easel like this before, so you can learn with me, and let's see how it comes out. I went through my lumber rack and I dug out some sugar maple I found back there, and here's a piece of it here. It's 5/4 material, clear pine, so it has a nice patina to it. So I thought this would make a perfect material for this project. So what I did was I went ahead and I ripped out some pieces from another piece of this material, and here are 3 pieces I ripped out. They're all about 1.5 inches wide here, and unlike my other projects, I'm not going to do a big a formal drawing to make all the dimensions appear in paper first. I'm just going to kind of wing this one, which is not like me at all. But I thought we'd try this, and we'll go step by step. But from that picture I showed you online, I roughed out some dimensions, and what I did was I cut these 3 stringers here at 5 feet. And I wanted to give it a nice angle, tilting an angle. So I figured out that for the bottom, I wanted to have a 20-inch a spread on the legs and the feet that go on the floor. And I want to taper the design in so the top closes in, gives it a nice look like this. And I figured out that it's about a 3-degree offset angle from 90, which is about, gives me the right look, as you can see here. And I'm going to go ahead and build this frame. Now, here's a cross piece I cut that I'm going to mortise and tenon into the legs here. As you see here, I already marked it out. And so I'm going to do that one first. And then I'm going to figure out the top one here. I'm going to make 2 smaller pieces that go in here and here, and mortise those and tenon into each one of these legs, including the spire piece that comes out taller. And this middle piece here will then mortise and tenon into this piece here. So I marked out now on the legs where the mortise will go into each of these legs in this bottom piece, in the bottom mortise, okay? And so in order to cut those mortises, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use my drill press mortising jig, which I set up here. And basically this is a nice jig made by Delta in this case, that is going to allow me to mortise those slots very consistently between all the legs. I've set this dimension here to make sure this is in the center of those legs, and I'm going to go ahead and mortise them down like that, about 3/4 inch depth, because again, those pieces are going to be 1.5 inches wide. So I'm going to go about halfway into the legs. With the mortises now cut into the legs, I outlined around the ends of this cross piece the depth of the mortise, which is going to be the height of the tenon, and I went all the way around the piece like you see, and now I know where my cheek cut's going to be. So I marked out the lines, and you can see that I marked out where the cutouts are going to be, and you see the center portion where the X's are not there is going to be the remaining material that we're going to leave on the tenons. I'm going to use my tenoning jig on my table saw, and here it is set up already. And what I do is I place this on the table. I put a 3/8 inch daddle blade into my zero clearance insert here, because that's about the width of the cheek cut. We don't have to be exact, because we're going to adjust the sled to get exactly the right dimension on the cheek cut. So the other adjustment I made was on this back support here. I angled this back 3 degrees like we've been talking about, and you'll see here that I set it so it's exactly matching up with my square here. So now I'm going to get the right lean back on the piece so that I get the right consistent angle cut on the cheek as it sits on the slot. So I want to point out one little trick I used here. So when the tenon here was in the opposite direction to the sled, I had to make this little wedge here, which is double the 3-degree offset, which is 6 degrees, because this adjustment on the sled is only a lean back adjustment. So I could do one side where I lean back at 3 degrees, but when I flipped it so that it leaned forward at the other end, then that forced me to make this little wedge out of some scrap wood just to offset the difference. And I could leave this setting alone for all the cuts. After cleaning up both the tenons and the mortise, they fit together quite nicely. So that is a nice fit. It's a little loose. I wanted it to be a little more, but we'll fill that in with the glue. The other thing I wanted to point out was what I'm learning from this process is that the tenon jig has some tear out in the back. You can see it here, but wherever the end cut was, it tore out. So not a big deal. I can always fill it, but you know, for the future, I'm going to try to avoid that. I tried taping it, still no improvement. So I'm going to try a backup board next time I do that. Use the tenon jig. Anyways, this is where we're at now. The pieces fit together, both sides, as you can see that. And now we're going to work on the center piece here. That's going to go up to the middle of the easel. And what I did was I went ahead and I did a mortise here, similar to what you saw me, the same exact thing you saw me use the tenon jig on the drill press. So I did a nice job there. I cleaned it up with a chisel. And this time what I did is I realized that I should have cut these mortises shorter and have a full overlap at all sides of the tenon with you know, a cheek cut on all sides. But no big deal. This is a full cut tenon now, so you will see the little slot as it goes in. But no big deal on this one. I don't want any water, anything getting in here in case it's left outside. So what I'm going to do is I made the mortise smaller than the actual width of the piece. So we're just going to go ahead and tenon out just a section in the middle, as you can see, and then we'll have a full overlap on all sides of the tenon. Since this middle piece is long, I won't be able to use it on my tenon jig over here because I'm going to hit the ceiling. So what I'm going to do with this, to cut this tenon here, I'm going to go ahead and do that on my miter saw, set the depth at the right depth, and just trim away from this cheek line, So I marked out the tenon here on the inside based on the dimensions of the mortise, and we're going to just cut it with my miter saw, and I set the depth gauge so it will go exactly to the line that I marked out, and we're just going to eat away at this material. I fit in the cross piece here, and I put a clamp on to get the right angle, so you see the seams are nice and tight now on both sides. And I also fitted in this center piece here that's mortised right into this cross piece. So with all these angles set, I know now what the top dimension should be. So what I did was I basically measured down here a foot from the top to the top of the cross piece here, and same here. So just like I did over here, I got a foot dimension between the bottom of the leg and this cross piece, bottom of the cross piece. So that's looking good. And then what I went ahead and did, I marked out, I measured the pieces and I marked them out to allow for a 3/4 inch depth of the tenon into each of the vertical pieces here. So you can see I did that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and cut the tenons like you saw me cut them before. And this time I'm going to use the mortising jig because they're small. And I'm going to cut those tenons, and then I'm going to come back and mark out the mortise areas. Here's the first piece I clamped into the tenoning jig. And I just want to show you that I did put a backup piece on it, a piece of plywood I'm using, and I cut it the same width as the tenon, sorry, as the cross piece. So it's clamped in place, and now when the blade comes in and finishes its cut down here, this plywood will prevent the tear out that we had before. With the tenons cut now on the cross pieces, I have now placed them onto the table where they're going to be located with the vertical pieces, and I put a straight edge against the vertical pieces where they line up, and made sure that the cross pieces line up as well. And I just traced out and marked out on each of them where the mark is, and I'm going to go ahead and mortise them now. Do these mortises in my mortising drill press jig. With all the mortise and tenon joints cut, they're ready for a dry assembly. Let's see how they fit together. And there we go. Not bad. With the easel frame now built, I cut 2 additional pieces for the kickstand that's going to support the back of it as it leans back. So here is the leg of it here, and here is the T-head I cut. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to mortise and tennis these two together, and this is going to kick out on a hinge. I'm going to have a couple of hinges here that's going to allow this to fold out, and the leg will come back as a kickstand to allow it to lean back and support itself. So I went ahead and cut the tenon, as you see here, at the top of the kickstand leg, and then I cut the mortise into the T-head, so they fit together quite nicely, like that. So that's going to be the kickstand T-handle that we've been talking about. And now to make this hinge, what I've decided to do is I found this folding door hinge in my hardware stock. So I'm going to go ahead and use this. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it here between the 2 pieces, like so. And this is meant to go between 2 door jambs, actually, on a folding door. So if I place it over like that, it's going to work just like this. It's going to open like that. So the only twist here is I have this centerpiece that comes up higher, so I just need to mortise a groove into here to make it sit nice and flush on this back of the frame, so that we can go ahead and do that with I'm going to use the miter saw and just cut a groove the width of this this hinge pivot right here. With the groove cut into this vertical piece here, enough to accept the hinge, I went ahead and I drilled two holes here using a self-centering bit with a hinge. It's a hinge bit. So now I'm just going to screw in these screws here, see how it all fits together. Now I'm going to mark here where the corresponding holes are on the T kickstand, and I'm going to go ahead and drill those and then put those in. Here's the easel standing on its own now. So everything's just dry fitted together. You can see here, came out just as we were hoping it would. But now it's time to cut the angles on the feet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the position where we think is going to be the most commonly used, and then just put a block against the floor and mark a line on each of the legs, this one being opposite to the front, as you can see there. Mark a line on it, and then that way I'm going to cut that back at that back angle, whatever it is, and that will be the kind of the sweet spot for where the angle will be for it. But you can adjust other angles. It's just that's going to be about kind of an average default angle. So measuring the angle that we just marked on the legs works out to be, as you can see, about 70 degrees on my angle gauge. And 70 minus 90 is 20 degrees on my miter saw. So we're going to go ahead and set it to 20 and make these cuts. So with the kickstand done, now's the time to put in the brace that will allow us to lock the back kickstand at different positions. So I'm just thinking of, I had this piece of leftover pine, clear pine. So I'm going to put a brace like this and just roughly dimensioning it out. It's about 10 inches this way, 10 inches that way. And it's about, I'd say, about 10 inches down from this cross piece. So we're going to go ahead and cut this in two. It's about 20 inches long, so it would be perfect for this. And this is going to be the adjustable brace, which I'm going to show you how I'm going to make that. So first we're going to cut this in half, and I'm going to round the ends so that they'll be able to pivot. The idea is that we're going to have a pivot point here, and then to close up the easel, it's gonna have a slot here that's going to be able to do that and let this adjust down with a wing nut and a bolt. So I cut the pieces in half, and now I'm going to just use 13/16 sockets as my guide. I'm just going to trace out the round ends, the round overs on the ends. It's an easy way to do it. Is the sockets are nice because you have all these different sizes in like 16th or 1 millimeter increments. So much better. I used to use hole saws for this, but they have teeth on it and they don't come in as available in different sizes. So good. And I'm just going to take this out on my sanding table, my disc sander, and sand around these edges as I draw them. Okay, with the pieces cut now, I'm going to just place them here and make sure I can get a full extension of the kickstand like that. So and that sets my how high up I go with them, because that's really what I want to do, is get the maximum extension at the widest point. So that is about good, and it looks like I'm going to put a mark here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole in the center here, and then each one of these locking arms, I'm going to put a hole as well, and then thread through a bolt with a wing nut. With the pieces now cut and rounded, the brace pieces, and I've also marked out the hole, the pivot point for these pieces on the front frame, like I showed you. So now I'm going to go ahead and drill them, and I've decided to use a 1/4 20 carriage bolt that's going to go through all of them, and both sides in this center rib piece, and we're going to just drill them on the drill press. Now with the brace put back together temporarily with the hinge, I went ahead and installed the bolt, put the through bolt in on these braces. And as you can see now, I can figure out where the slot has to be in this piece so that this is now, excuse me, adjustable. So this is the max position here. Actually, I can probably go a little taller like that. So I kind of want to start at the tallest position, and that goes right out. So I guess that's going to be the max because I start losing the width of the material. So we're going to put a mark here, okay? And then to fold it in, you just let them come down like this. And when they're fully folded, I can now mark the position of the end slot. So now I know the slot dimensions, so it goes from here to here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put a slot into this kickstand piece that's going to end at these two marks right here. From those two end marks that we made earlier, I'm going to now use my centering gauge here and just put a center point on the kickstand leg to find the center. Now I have the center and the mark of the end of the slot, so I'm going to go ahead and drill 2 1/4-inch holes into the end of the slots with my drill press. So I set up my router table with a 1/4-inch spiral bit upcut, and the reason I did an upcut is because the chips I want to go down out of the slot that we're going to cut, and I put a vacuum system underneath the this plate right here that's going to evacuate the chips as they come out. It's going to go up my vacuum system here, and I put a fence on without any relief in it because all the cutting is going to be done inside this slot that we're going to make for the kickstand. And in addition to the 2 end holes you saw me drill, I also drilled a middle hole somewhere in the middle between the 2 end holes as a starting point for the slot. So what I did was I'm going to set this slot height here so that it's only about a 1/4-inch cut at a time. So I'm going to dial this down. And the reason I had it up was because I used that slot, the bit position. What I did was I put the center hole that I drilled onto the bit. I slipped it right onto the bit like that. I set my fence tight against the piece. So now I know I have the right dimension between the bit and the fence to get that center line. I also double secured the fence because this fence, as you've seen in some of my other videos when I upgrade this system, is notorious for moving. So I double clamp the fence with these extra clamps here so it won't move back. And that usually happens when I do something like this, when I put a feather board with pressure against the fence. All the vibration that occurs during the cut actually ends up moving the fence. So, and the reason why I want to put these feather boards against here is because I always want to make sure that the piece stays very firmly against the fence. That's going to, because if it deviates at all on the coming off, it's going to widen the slot and make a mess. Now you might think this is overkill here, but this particular cut on a router table is a very dangerous cut. Whenever you have a router bit spinning, in this case 21,000 RPMs, any wobble that occurs or any shifting of this piece could cause that bit to start grabbing into the sides of the piece, opening the hole right up and throwing the piece out at me. So we want to make sure this piece is always securely held, and I've had bad experiences with cuts like this in the past. Now I'm going to go a little by little, maybe a 1/4-inch cut each time. And how I know when to stop, besides knowing when I get these end points with the bit, I can hear it and feel it. I also marked lines on this fence to tell me where the bit cut lines are on both the front side and back side of the bit, as you can see here. In addition to that, I drew lines from each of the end holes out straight to the fence. So now I know when those lines line up with the bit line here, I'm at the edge, the end of my slot. So that's also going to be a guide for me to know when to stop. So let's go ahead and router the slot carefully, taking a 1/4-inch on each side, coming about halfway up on one side, and flipping the piece and doing the other side until they meet in the middle. Okay, that should be about half. Let's see, not bad. That's pretty good. I'm just gonna dial this bit down again. I love my new homemade router lift system. It just really works out well for me. Start with about there. That came out pretty good. It's a little offset on this side. Not sure why, but this side looks really right on the money. And I'm just gonna run it through a couple of more times. Just clean up these end slots. I'm gonna have the bit go full height, and I'm just gonna run it until it hits both ends and clean them up, so I don't have to do a lot of sanding in there. I assembled the adjustable kickstand brace. As you can see here, I had a couple of nice knobs in my hardware stock, so I used them. Here's the slot, as you can see, and it works quite nicely. And so here is on the other side, you can see the carriage, the heads of the carriage bolts here, which are 1/4 by 4 inches, which worked out pretty well. So here is basically, it's almost all ready. Before I glue everything up, I'm going to go around and I'm going to round these corners. I used an 1/8" socket to do that, to draw the outline of the rounding on each of the top of the trim pieces, the stand pieces here. I'm also going to use a 1/4 inch round of a bit and ease these edges to soften them, and then give it a good sanding and basically glue it up. So giving all the pieces a good first sanding, now we can go ahead and glue it up, clamp it and glue the frame, and let it sit overnight. So here's the piece. I fully assembled, and I did another finish sanding to it after I unclamped it and sanded off the glue. So it came out really nice. I'm very happy with it. And these bars came out very nice too, this brace. So now it's time to add the shelves. First, we're going to add a bottom shelf. So I cut a piece of this sugar maple that was given to me from my good neighbor, Brian Cartwright. And it was used originally, it was intended to be used for casing. So you can see it has a relief in the middle, which I ripped off the other relief. Here's a full width piece with both reliefs. So I'm going to use this relief as a way to make the ledge on the edge of the shelf. So I'm going to cut this deeper. It's 5/4 thick. So that's 1 inch on the relief side. So we're going to deepen the relief with a plane with my jointer and a table saw. So let's start doing that and clean these pieces up. With the shelves cut now, both the bottom and the top, I basically took some more of that sugar maple material and planed it down and reduced the size so it would fit right under here and be my support for my shelf like that. And what I did to smooth this off is I used a French curve and I just measured down 2 inches from each edge, found the center point, and I just used a French curve like this to connect the line, give me a nice soft curve like that. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this out on the bandsaw, this curvature. And I did something similar for the top, which is going to be up here. So I'm going to have the support piece. This is the piece that's going to actually clamp and be adjustable with this middle spire here. And it's going to be the reverse like that. So it'd be nice. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use screws, some nice probably brass screws to attach these two and not glue them, so that in the future, if I ever wanted to change this for a different width or say maybe a thinner painting or whatever, I can just switch these out and still keep the original mounting slide intact. With the two shelf supports finished, I went ahead and I laid out some lines for the actual brace or the back side of them, where we're going to be doing a clamp around that center vertical piece, this piece right here. So I'm developing a clamping system to be able to clamp to this center piece as it goes up and down, as your supports go up and down. So what I did was I cut some blocks out of the same material, the same stock here, for the center pieces, for all these vertical pieces. And I then laid out some lines here. This is the center of the, I marked the center of each one of these shelf supports. And then I went around that. I put the center one in the middle. I centered that there. And then I placed one on either side of it, these marks. And I drew lines on both pieces like this. So now I know where to attach these pieces. We're gonna clamp and glue them, okay? And it's gonna look like this, something like that. And then I'm gonna trace the back side of them over here for the contour, so that we get the same contour on the bottom. And then we're gonna glue them in place. With the side pieces finished, sanded and smooth, and the front brackets done, I'm just going to go ahead and glue these side pieces on, these guide pieces I'm going to call them. And I mark them so I know that the contours are right, even though they're all symmetrical, just in case. So I'm just going to put some glue on here. And I'm going to use some brads. Because I could just clamp this and that would be good enough. But the problem is that there is these are slippery now that I have the glue between them. And if I clamp them, they're going to probably move as the clamp compresses the pieces together. So I don't want that to happen. So what I find is the better way to do this is to go ahead and use some brads. Because the brads will clamp them as well as align them, prevent them from moving around. So that's better. And it gives me a guarantee that I'm going to be aligned. Because these have to line up on the marks I put, because this is going to ride along that center vertical spire piece on the easel. So if I'm off, they could be too tight or too loose, and that I don't want. So I went ahead and put some clamps on them just to make sure I get them nice and compressed against the bracket. So let's let them sit for a few hours, and then we'll come back and finish the job. Here are the pieces now with the clamps removed. Still, I put a little wood filler for the nail heads there, the brads. Anyways, what I'm going to do now is, you see I have one for the bottom, and now I have a head piece as well. It's going to slide up and down so you can kind of see how this works. Now what I need to do is put the last backing plate on, which is going to basically go over the back of this. It's going to cover this. It's going to be the same shape. I'm sorry. And so I cut and planed a nice piece of the sugar maple. Sorry, sugar pine. And then what I did was to get the back side of the plate, I basically align these up like this, and I just trace down here the outline of the same curvature that I made on this piece here. So I did that for this top piece and for the bottom piece. So as you see, I lined them up, just like that. So I traced it. And now I have the outline for the pieces. And I'm going to cut this on my miter saw and the bandsaw. Here are the pieces just about done, all sanded and cut to the right contour. So this is for the lower shelf, and this is for that top half piece. It's going to secure the top of the picture frame, whatever it is. And here are the shelves, all sanded up. As you can see, came out really nice. So the last thing we have to do is just drill the holes for the clamps. So you can kind of see how this works now. So this is going to be on the front bottom of the easel, and this back plate is now going to be a clamping plate that we're going to just drill through holes here, 1/4 inch holes, so that we have a carriage bolt go through here. And in the front we're going to have the turn knobs, tighten it up, and you can loosen it up and down and slide it up and down like that. So, and then this is the lower shelf, and this lower shelf we're going to screw onto this adjustable sled here that we made, and we're going to just go ahead and drill some holes into the shelf so we can attach it directly to the top of this sliding brace or sled. And so we're going to use some nice brass screws for that. We'll go through here. And like I said, it's nice that you can do that, because I can always change this piece out in the future, or whoever has this easel, and change the width of this shelf, this ledge. Okay, and the same for the hat. So let's go ahead and drill these holes. I marked them in the center of each one of these spaces, these guide bars that you watched me make, and then we're just going to drill down through all 3 pieces, and then we're going to come back and drill through here, through the shelf for these brass screws, and then locate them here and mark and drill this piece. With all the holes drilled now, we're going to go ahead and put the brass screws in. I'm going to use a little bit of wax, screw wax, for them. This would make it easy for it to go in, and then be removed in case you want to change out the shelf ledge. Okay. I noticed these carriage bolts were a little bit long on the shelf and the headpiece plate, so I'm going to go ahead and cut them and shorten them. piece finished. It's now time to finish it. So we disassembled the easel, and it's in the paint shop, as you can see. My beautiful wife is now staining the piece, or I should say using Danish oil on it with a foam brush. And this is a medium walnut. As you can see, I'm going to go ahead and oil everything up, and then give it a good wiping, and then oil it again. And here is the finished product. I love the way it came out. I love the finish, the Danish oil, medium walnut. I put a chalkboard on. It's going to be one of the items we're going to use it for the wedding celebration. But pretty happy with it. Came out really nice. So I hope this was helpful for you, and that if you decide to spend a few days making one of these, they're very nice. So thank you so much for watching.